Temper tantrums, whining, poor attitudes, misbehaving in public. Moms have experienced all of these things and more. Today on the Mom View, parenting expert Nicholeen Peck talks about the principles of teaching self-government to your children. You will not want to miss this episode of the Mom View. I am so excited for this episode. I cannot even tell you. I think we're all like on our chairs kind of going, okay, how do we do it? How do we parent? So we're excited to have Vanessa with us today as our guest host. And of course, Nicholeen Peck.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. Oh my goodness, Nicholeen, I'm so excited she's next to me.
Nicholeen is joining us.
We need all the help we can get.
I'm telling you. Okay, so I just have to say that I met Nicholeen Peck in 2006. It is crazy to even say that we've known each other that long. I have 8 children, as all of you know. And my youngest daughter was 9 at the time. And we were having some serious disciplinary issues, I guess, but everything that was happening in our relationship, I realized I was doing wrong, and I didn't know that until I went to parenting classes with Nicholeen. She was doing a homeschool presentation, very unusual for a homeschool conference to have a whole entire day where someone is doing back-to-back classes, but I went to the first one, signed up for all 3 of the next ones. So one of the things I realized is that, as a parent, as a mom especially, everything that we do is so personal. Mm-hmm. It's like the heart and the soul of everything that we do. We're giving everything we have. Right. But I realized when I took Nicholeen's classes that I was taking things personally. Mm-hmm. And when you take things personally, you act much differently. So there was that's right before I took the classes, my daughter and I, we were in the kitchen, and she was just all upset, 9 years old, mind you. And she's like, I hate you. And I was like, oh my gosh. At that point in time, I just couldn't take it anymore. Because she was constantly saying, I'm an awful person. I'm this, I'm that. And finally, I just broke down and I started crying. And I was like, I don't understand. I do everything for you. I love you. Why do you hate me? And she immediately broke down and started crying and saying, Mommy, I don't hate you. Why do you think I hate you? Because you just told me that you hate me. Oh. And I was like, and then I take Nicholeen's class and I'm like, she had no idea how to communicate. I don't know how to communicate. I'm upset. I'm angry. I need help. I hate you is all that came out.
And it's really funny you mentioned that because culturally we're so different, right? There's even memes about how white women react versus Latina moms versus other cultures. If my daughter comes, I'm going to say, I hate you. I'm like, come over here. I'm going to give you something to hate me for. Let me show you what hate looks like. Right? Because that's a reaction. But we're still taking it personally, right? We still take it personally. Like, if my kids go, like, whining about something, I'm like, I'm going to show you what you need to whine about,
Yeah.
Because that's a reaction. But it still means we're taking it personally, which is great to know that there's ways to cope with that.
Yeah. Us Latinas have the plancha. The chancla.
The chancla.
Yes.
Yeah, well, because you're in the wrong part of your brain, really, is what happens. When you start taking it really personally like that, you're going to your midbrain instead of your front brain. So that front brain has 100% ability to solve your problem. But what we do is we go to midbrain, which then we only have about 40% ability to solve our problem because we're getting emotional. And then we start feeding off of their emotions. And if it gets bad, we go to back brain, we've got 10% ability to be able to solve our problems. And so then no wonder the fights, the power struggles, all the things start happening. Another thing that occurs is that this shouldn't be a thing, but it is a thing, that parents want to be liked by their children.
Of course we do.
Yeah. Of course we do. Right. Yeah.
Parents
sure.
want to be like
one big happy family.
Yeah. Well, they want their children to approve of what they're doing
in the whole world.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, because we've given our all to them, right?
Sure.
We're like, this person is I've given them everything, like the blood, the sweat, the tears. So we want them to look at us and go, you're the best. You've done it all perfectly for me. When in reality, that's not how
it's all ego, right? That is all ego.
I want them to say, how can I serve you, Mom? How can I help you, Mother dearest?
By not losing my dog. That's
Yes, I know, exactly. I mean, all of us, we want the best relationship in our home. That's why we're so glad we're here today. This is our sanctuary. this is what we love the most, what we invest all of our time and energy is our family. So thank you so much. This is going to be great.
How did you get to do this? I mean, I would like to know how,
Yeah.
what got
Well,
into
she's
you that
just
you're like,
gonna
I'm
tell
going to
us.
do this and teach people.
Yeah, I never planned on it, actually. So I always just tell people I was a mom, minding my own business, trying to be the best mom that I could be. And then all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, will you come teach at our PTA group? Will you come teach at our church? Will you come teach here? You know, and it just turned into this big thing. And then the BBC came in and said, will you star on this show? And then people said, where's your books? And then, and all of a sudden it just happened to me, basically. But I was trying to be a good mom, not just to my children, but also to foster children. So I took in therapeutic children. I did therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens for a lot of years. So when my children, I have 4, when they were babies, then I took in these teens. So it was like I had 2 batches of children. And I got to practice on other people's teenagers, basically, and go, nope, that's not the way. That's not the way, you know. But then also, I mean, I have a background in behavior and psychology and stuff like that as well.
So that makes it easier, right? You
A
have
little
a
bit, yeah.
better understanding of how the brain works and how emotions work and things like that. I've noticed too that as parents, we're not really great communicators, especially if you come from an abusive home or something like that where you've done nothing but hear yelling the entire time. So that kind of instills your own parenting. Something I've noticed, but trying to work on. So I appreciate you being here and teaching other families.
Which,
that.
speaking of which, Nicolette, we know that what happens in the home with the family can also be reflective of what's happening in society, right? How it shapes society. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you're very well versed in that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I would say that right now, what I'm teaching is of great interest to people. People keep having me go from place to place because they're seeing that things are falling apart. Yeah. And so so the family is the first social unit of society. It is number 1. And this has actually been written in many documents, even UN documents. It says in the document on the family, it says that the family is the first social group unit of society, right, and that it needs to be protected. Yes. But it also needs to be strengthened, right? Mm-hmm. Not just given stuff, but we need to give it its sovereignty. Otherwise we have a problem. But if the people in the family don't know what they're doing, it spills out into the whole rest of community, to the world. There's this ripple effect that happens. And so what's going on right now, and it really is heartbreaking to me, is there's so many people looking at the world and they're worried, and they're looking at their families and they're stressed and they're heartbroken, and they're like, what do I do? And so they listen to programs and, politicians, and they put all of their, money and effort and everything that's outside of the home to try to solve the problems. But really, the number 1 most important thing, and this is from a lady who I speak at the UN, I'm part of world congresses, wow, I'm part of things, I go and do a lot of stuff, but the number 1 thing that I ever do is my family, and then help other people do their family. And I'm never going to stop that, because that is the number 1 thing we can do to help our world.
Absolutely.
We've got to put our emphasis there. And there's a lot of people who are trying to tear it down, who are trying to tell people, no, this is what you should do with your children. You should give them this. And it all comes back to monetary things, right? Physical, tangible things. This new program, it's not about programs. It's about the people.
What are some of the challenges you've experienced?
Just personally, you mean?
With the teaching, and even personally as a parent trying to come to your own.
I'll tell you a big challenge. So personally, for me, there's just not enough time in the day.
Right. No, for sure. Absolutely.
Wow. You can't be everywhere, right? And so
we need another 12 hours. No.
Exactly. I mean, every parent feels like that, right?
Days a
year. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, just fatigue. What parent doesn't have fatigue and feel like, how can we get it all done, right? I would say that probably the biggest thing that other parents tell me, because they're constantly asking me questions and stuff like that, is, okay, how do I get on the same page with my spouse? How do I overcome what happened to me as a child?
Okay.
Or how do I overcome this historical parenting that I know is not good.
Right.
Like, it's not coming out good. How do I rein myself in? So the whole everything I teach is called teaching self-government.
Right.
And even though people come to me because they're like, you've got to fix my kid. My kid needs help. And
It's really a reflection of the parent.
But actually I'm like, okay, but in order to change one heart, we have to change the whole group of hearts, and it's going to start with you. And so really the parents are my target audience. If they can self-govern themselves, they can teach it to their children.
That's amazing.
You know, that the change one person, change the world.
Right. Well, you're the example. The parent is the example within the home, right? So if you can't change yourself, how do you expect to change your kids?
Well, and
influence your
Nicholeen
children?
is like a whole entire featured segment in our cottage meeting program.
Yes, I
because
know!
It's all about how do we teach that. There's a great book called Our Home, and there's a quote in there that says, if your children are going to wrangle and disagree, then how are they possibly going to be able to have discussions in the halls of Congress? And so if you want to start by having good politicians, you start by raising statesmen who become statesmen. And that's so when we come back, we're going to talk more about that and this whole idea of calm, because that was something I learned that literally changed my life when it came to parenting. And we'll come right back.
Do you think America's having an identity crisis?
Yes, very much so. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
There's a lot of targeting of conservative children.
That they're coming after the children. It's like, you know what? We have to do something. This is war.
Professors and students are trained in a particular kind of way, and that there's indoctrination that takes place that you're not aware of.
All the curriculum was dumbed down, and we moved away from teaching knowledge, facts, and information, and instead indoctrinated kids with attitudes, values, and beliefs that most parents don't believe and don't want their children believing.
It's the globalists that want to reshape the globe are a elite group, a small group of gatekeeper elites.
Our children are being formed, they're being shaped by a system that is actually designed to turn them away from God, to turn them away from the principles that are at the foundation of our country, really even to turn them against their families.
That the condition of the land is always directly related to the condition of God's people's hearts. And so we're now maybe facing national judgment.
Now what we're up against is the establishment. See that we need to have some kind of a healthy revolution. We would always say a nonviolent revolution, but there has to be a revolution. Otherwise, we're going to go down because these foxes are part of a world order. They're globalists, they're not Americans, and they'll sink this ship.
Just think of the power of those three words, just a mom. You are fighting for something that means more to you than anything in the world, your children.
There are patriots like you and me fighting against the globalist agenda in order to preserve our republic. I want you to meet them and be inspired. Are you ready? Let's go.
One of the core components of Nicoleen's program is this idea of calm. Parents being calm.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Okay, so after I took Nicoleen's class, I clearly understood what this meant. And really, it's about roles. What is the role of a mother? It is, and like you said, Nicholeen, we all want our kids to just love us and be our friends, and that's not our role. Our role is to teach and guide them. So when I went through the class and you were talking about this idea of how to communicate with a child who doesn't know how to communicate, it actually helped with my relationship with my husband too. So the tool is, the message that I hear is whatever it is that the message you're intending to send? And so I would say that to Amber and she's like, no, what I meant to say was, and instantly both sides of the brain are working, and instead of them just being emotional, they're having to think, what is it that I'm trying to say? And suddenly there's calm. And it's because the mother is being taught how to teach the child how to communicate. And that's what I realized was my most important role. This little kid came into the world, no understanding whatsoever. I've had a few years on the planet, and I need to help them know how to communicate. So I need to learn how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely. And honestly, the whole idea of roles is so intrinsic. Like everyone's looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? That's what people want to know. Who am I to these people? And obviously it's self-evident. I have the child, I'm the parent, I'm the parent. Like that must be my role. But when you're in the minute, you get caught up in the emotions, you get caught up in what's being said, and you forget, who am I? What is my heart connection to their heart? A lot of people don't know that a mother is the heart and hearthstone of her family. Whether she works, whether she's home all day, whether she's has an illness that's terminal, whether whatever, okay, it doesn't matter what's going on with that mom. She has this little tether that hooks to the heart of every single person in her family. And she can guide them to the point that when the children are little, they have such an allegiance to mom that they'll even tattletale on dad.
It's
And
true.
they're like, Dad, like, oh, mom, dad watched, or whatever. They'll do that. Now, when they get a little bit older, they start turning a little bit more toward dad to see what it's like out there in the world, right? And that kind of stuff. And this sometimes is hard for mom. Mom struggles with this. And so she has to constantly be turning their hearts toward dad throughout the whole time when they have full allegiance toward mom. So that when they start turning toward dad, like more naturally because of their development, she feels like she's done her job, that this is okay. And it's not like somehow that they're being unfaithful to her because they've pulled away from her. Now, and a wise daddy should be turning them now back toward mama's principles, because children go to their mothers for wisdom and to their fathers for acceptance. And if daddy shows he accepts mama's wisdom all the time, then what happens is the children have the greatest ability to have success. And they find out who they are,
That's
too.
a great foundation.
You helped me with that too.
Heard it explained that way before.
Yes, okay, so I can, the perfect example. My husband was a TDY all the time, temporary duty away from home with the military. And so I'm running the home while he's gone.
You're both mom and
I am
dad.
the center of the life of everything that's happening in this home. And so he would come home, and whatever issue that had come up that I had to figure out how to navigate, we established some kind of policy, rule, whatever, standard. And he would come home and he would say something, and they would look to me like, should we listen to him?
Is that right?
Is that right? Is that right? And it was a conflict for a while, because he's like, they should just be doing what I'm telling them to do. And I'm like, you don't understand.
You haven't been here.
You're gone. We have to figure out a problem. And so one of the things I realized is, if we're going to do that, him guiding them to me and me guiding them to him, we have to be communicating. And so I felt like when he was TDY and out serving his country, my whole entire role was just say, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Just go serve the country. And I take your class and you're like, everything is not fine.
Wow.
we need to talk about this. Yeah. And so when we would get on the phone, or email, the rare times we were able to communicate, I'd say, okay, so this happened and this is what we tried out. I think it's working. And so when he would come home and he'd say something, he would look to me and he would say, is that working? Yeah. And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So, but that, ladies, is self-government.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. And I had, I understand self-government on the world.
Yeah.
But when she started talking about self-government at home, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to raise kids.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach them to be self-sufficient. What are you talking about?
I do want to have you define that for us, because when I first read self-government, I felt like it feels self-righteous or selfish or self, And so I really want you to talk about that, because in essence, it all does begin with us, which is ourself. So explain that so we have the right springboard. Like Kimberly's saying, she got it, she understood it.
Let's define self-government. I think that's a good idea. Before I do, I just want to say that one thing Kimberly's touching on here is being very deliberate in our communication.
Intentional.
Yeah, being very proactive, very deliberate, instead of just going, okay, well, I'm just going to passively, handle this or emotionally make it feel this way for my spouse
or somebody
this way
saying,
for my
just tell me
children.
what to do.
Right.
I think as parents, we're like, just somebody give me the rule book. Tell me what's
and they
gonna
don't
work.
know the words.
That's
They don't know the words. And we can talk a lot about words. I have a whole stack of books. I got more, but there's that tell all kinds of words. At first, I didn't even want to give people words, but then they were like, great ideas, Nicholeen, love the principles. How do you do it? And I was like, well, I say this. Well, then tell us what to say. I'm like, tell you what to say.
That's not self-government.
I'm like a freedom
Cliff
person.
notes, please.
I'm a freedom person. I won't tell you what to say.
Right,
Pick yourself. But no, in the end, people are like, no, I really just tell me how to not be programmed the way I was and how to program myself how I want to be.
You have to deprogram.
Well, because we're all robots.
Yes, unlearn what you've previously learned in order to learn new information so that you can operate in a different way. I like that.
Yeah, totally. Okay, you want the definition. Here's
I
the
think
definition.
that's beneficial. Let's start on that.
Okay, so here's the official definition of self-government that's in the book there. Being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So that's two things, that you understand cause and effect, and not just like if I throw it up, it must come down, but if I yell at you, you go like this, right? Like that's you distance, which means suddenly there's distrust that occurs there. Wait, I don't feel safe. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know what's happening. So that pushback. And for children, if they don't do what they're told to do, again, the parent goes, and pulls back. So then there's this distrust. I don't know if that child, if they go to that party, really will stand for our values, really will stay true to, so I don't know, because they don't make their bed, and they don't take their dish over, and because they don't understand this relationship bank account that occurs. That's cause and effect. Every one of my foster children and their parents, because you always have to work with the parents when you're working with the foster children, none of them understood cause and effect in their relationships. And what's more, the second part is examining yourself. So possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control your own behaviors. One of the hardest things that a person ever does is examine themselves and be honest about it. And say, and there's a difference between who you want to be and who you ought to be. Who you ought to be.
That's good.
Sometimes it's difficult, right? Because a lot of, especially women, at least in my household, I take the initiative for most of the things that happen, right? And sometimes I just want to kind of step back and say, okay, I'm going to let my husband lead. I'm going to let my husband do it. And then, and it's so difficult because sometimes we think we can do it faster, we can do it better, we get it over with, and it's, it's done. Instead of just kind of taking a step back and giving ourselves that time to be able to say, okay, I'm going to just let it go. I'm not going to not have that control, and I'm going to give that control to my husband and let him take that initiative.
So I have a rule in my family. So me and my husband absolutely see ourselves as equally yoked, pulling together. We're one, right? That's what it means to be married. We're one. But he's going to give certain things that I can't give, and I'm going to give certain things that he can't give. And so we're going to have this really good, like yin and yang, I guess, kind of thing going on. But my rule is, if he starts the interaction, he finishes it, unless he's got a timeout. And
that's good.
And if I start the interaction with the child, then I'm going to finish it. And there's a reason. Because if I start an interaction with a child and he has to bail me out, that undermines me, and that child will now try to walk on me all the time.
Yes.
And there are some parents that have that situation where one's the heavy and one's the softy. And so the heavy has actually taught all the children to walk all over the softy, even though that heavy is trying to do good. They're trying to help out that other person. And so if you can have an arrangement like that with your spouse, it makes a big difference in all of your interactions with them. Now, again, if the spouse has a trouble, self-governing or engaging into power struggles, then, you want to, in your husband and wife relationship, have some sort of a little, like, code word or a wink and a blink or something where it's like, sometimes okay, now is the time where I think I have something I've got to do. Can you take over? But it's not like you're bailing me out. Right.
Yeah,
it can't look that way.
Usually this happens to a lot of women, right? You're like busy doing 18 things at the same time, even, and then your husband could just be sitting there on his phone or on the computer.
Can you handle this real quick?
And here are my kids, like, Mom, I'm cooking, I'm on the phone, or I'm doing something, and I'm doing like literally 3 things at the same time because we're multitaskers, right? Yeah. And my husband's just sitting there having a good time or just having a relaxing time, and my kids still call on me, like, Mom, can you help with this? Mom, can you answer this? Mom, can you? I'm like, I'm doing 3, 4 things at a time. Look at your dad, he's sitting there.
My kids will call me
you
on
need
the phone.
group problem solving help because I've got a solution for that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's awesome. Yeah.
My kids will call me on the phone and they're sitting in the same room with their father. to ask me a question.
Yes, very common.
It's
Debbie.
just,
very
it's just
common. Yes.
because mom's usually answering, and I'll be like,
They
"Dad-"
know you'll go to it quick.
I'll go,
Yeah.
Dad's right there.
And we
Well,
have
I know, but
solutions
I don't
constantly.
think he knows any of this.
It's
He
really
may
funny.
even
Defer to you.
Yeah,
He
right.
may defer to you
Right,
if
right.
asked.
He does know where the-
they're just cutting
where the
to
fork
chase.
is, or whatever.
Because women, moms take care of things.
Yeah.
You know, we get it done.
Yeah.
And it's we're we're even thinking about what comes next. We're like getting things done. Fast.
Well, so let me tell you, there was a time when my husband didn't use this well. When we did the foster children, he was right on. He knew he had to have something,
Yes.
because you can't just like spank them or something. And if you can't spank one child who's not your own, why should you spank your own, right? Why should you? I mean, I know that probably doesn't rub people always the right way. And a lot of people quote the Bible on it. Sorry, this might be a tangent, but they always say, if you spare the rod,
You spoil the child.
if you spare the rod, you spoil the child, right? But what they don't know is that the shepherds had a staff and a rod, and the Bible
Yes.
also says, raise your children by rod and staff.
Yes.
And staff is how they guided the sheep, never hit them. They never used that rod on the sheep. The rod was a big, ugly root. They used it to beat the wolves away. So what it's really saying is, if you don't beat the wolves away, if you don't see what's going on that phone, you're going to spoil your child. That's really what it means. So anyway, we couldn't hit him. My husband, he's like, okay, well, I got to have something. But then when we stopped doing foster care, he pulled back and he said, okay, I'm done with that. That's a lot of words. And then the children always came to me because he was now getting emotional with them. And he was snapping and stuff like that because he wasn't using his skills. But I kept using the skills because I'm like, well, I'm not going to go back to something that's less effective than
That makes
this.
sense.
I'm going to do this. Plus, I'm held accountable before my maker for, what I do with my children, right?
Absolutely.
And so I kept going.
A priest or a serial killer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And so I said, I'm going to keep going. Well, I started seeing how they would come to me all the time, and I realized they're coming to me because they know I'm safe, because they know I'll help them solve their problem. And so I decided not to resent it, even though, like you're saying, they should be talking to him, but they're calling me. I started to embrace it.
Yeah,
and then there was a point where he actually even brought it to my attention. They don't ever come to me.
Oh,
And
why
I
do you
said,
think that?
And I said, yeah, that's a good point. He actually sat down one day on the couch. It was a Saturday afternoon, and he went, and something inside me, I've been praying for 2 years for him to have a change of heart. And I was like, this is it. There was something in me that told me. And I said, what do you want? And he said, what do you mean, what do I want? That's a pretty broad question. And I said, I mean, you're clearly frustrated. What do you want? And he said, I just want them to do what I say. And I said, oh, you just need to tell them that's an instruction, because that's one of our skills, how to follow instructions. I said, and then they'll do it. And he said, oh, that. And I said, yeah. And then he's like, you're right. I need to get back to using the skills. And now he's like the missionary of teaching self-government.
That's
awesome.
I want to go back to the
curve.
cause and effect, because there's so many things that you taught me. We could be here for days talking about
Yes,
this.
we could.
But the cause and effect, when I went to your class that first time, you quoted somebody that said there should never be yelling in the house unless the house is on fire.
Okay, yeah.
And that
That's
really
good.
hit me, because if the house is on fire and you're telling the kids the house is on fire, why are they going to listen to you if you're always yelling?
Right.
And so I did the whole timeout thing. So there's a mom timeout thing. Mom needed a timeout. And it was so funny because when I would tell the kids, Mom needs a timeout, they would run.
Wow.
I'm just going to my room. And after a while, they were like, okay, Mom just needs a little bit of time.
Right.
But it was so brilliant because we were in Washington, D.C. about a year of doing this. And Noah, my number 7 son, he was like 4 years old at the time. And we're going and looking at all the monuments, and we come to this intersection, and we're all, just kind of seeing where we're going to go. And all of a sudden I turn around and Noah is on his way into the street and the traffic is moving. And I screamed at the top of my lungs, Noah, stop. And he just went, and my husband reached out and grabbed his shirt and pulled him back, and we saved that boy's life that day.
Oh, wow.
And if I had been yelling all the time, he'd have just kept going. And I mean, I get chills when I think about this, because I'm like, that was real life to me. And
The
my
house was on
son's
fire.
life was in
Right then. Yeah. That's when we need to use that loud voice. You're talking about the calmness really back again to that. That's so important. People come to me for that. That's a big thing that people want me to talk about. And what you do inside yourself to get you to that place. This is a harder task than it sounds like.
Especially
I think we all realize how
Very
hard
much.
I mean, this is a hard. People are like, okay, Nicholeen, you say calm. I want that.
Yes.
How do I get that? And then there have been people who say, okay, Nicholeen, I've listened to your class called Power of Calm every week for a year, and I think I'm finally calm. I'm like, a year. See, like it takes time.
That takes time.
But you were talking about going to have your calm plan.
Yes.
And I like that because every person in the family needs to have a calm plan. Doesn't matter their age. Everyone needs to know what's calm, what's not calm. What is a calm face? What's not a calm face? What's a calm voice? What's not a calm voice?
Okay, so Ethan is 7 years old. My husband comes home cranky about something, starts ordering the kids around, and he looks at me and says, "Does Daddy need a timeout?"
Yes, you do. So I've used the timeout for myself. But
So I call it a calm down spot.
I'll say Mommy needs a
timeout. Because a timeout has a certain affixed time to it.
Yes.
Okay.
And usually is used as a consequence. I use a calm down spot. I use it as a trigger spot.
Okay.
And this is actually only for younger children, and sometimes parents need it, but usually
Like,
the
I need
older
a
children,
break.
we do something else.
But when I say that, and I'm like, Mommy just needs a few minutes. I need a break to just get myself together, and I'll come back. And then I go into my bathroom or in my room, and I close the door, and 5 seconds later, it's Mommy, are you okay? Mommy, can you solve this for me? Mommy, I need a snack. Mommy, I'm like, oh my God, I just need a minute.
It's because they have anxiety. It's because they're children.
Help me, please.
Yeah, every person has anxiety, but children have higher levels
very high.
of anxiety, and you're their person that solves their problems. And when their prefrontal cortexes are so small, because they're not developed until they're like their mid-20s, they are used to their person.
I'm like,
that
dude,
helps them.
there's a stool in your bathroom. You can reach the snack box. Just go get it. And they're like, okay.
So they need to learn a couple of things.
Yes, lots of things.
So they need to learn in that scenario. In that scenario, they need to learn how to accept no answers.
Yes.
Because a closed door is no answer.
My tyrant, she
They're
doesn't
not
at all.
dropping the subject about it, and that's one of the steps to accepting a no answer. They need to know how to follow instructions. So if you give them instructions for how to solve it, how to really go do it, right? And how to stay calm with it. And if they really need to talk to you about something, they need to know how to disagree appropriately, which is another skill. So if you learned the 4 basic skills, this would help you a lot.
I'm taking your class.
Disagree appropriately is my favorite.
And Nicholeen, I have to say the other side of this, because as things have already changed, evolved, and having these smartphones, what about those kids that are stuck, or not stuck, but in their bedrooms, right? And then their parents don't even have the chance to see them as much
isolated.
anymore.
Yes.
I say this because I have a lot of friends that have smaller kids, and I'm talking about kids at 6 years old, 5 years old. They don't see them until it's time for dinner or time for lunch. And now that they're back in school, they come back from school, they go into their bedrooms, and they're stuck in there. And they don't even want to come out because they're stuck with their gadgets.
That is a very, very big conversation.
Things are changing.
We
and
need
they're
to take
changing
a break,
radically.
and we're going to come back and start with that one. I can see your gears going.
Oh,
already.
I'm like, I love that. Let's go there. That's a big one.
We'll be right back on the Mom View.
Hi everyone, we're at the VIP party here. Moms for America is sponsoring it.
John 8 on the Tucker Tour. And we are really excited because RFK is here at this stop again. And he just, the house roared when he was in Anaheim. So we think he's going to be a big hit tonight. And Larry Elder all the way from California. So this is going to be a great night. They're always good.
Yep. So every stop, just a little behind the scenes, from 5 to 6:30, we have a VIP experience. You get to meet Tucker Carlson and the special guest.
Get the picture.
Food, drinks, mix and mingle, and it has really been pretty electric, I would say.
It has. We've had some really exciting opportunities while people have been here asking really about Moms for America. And we're like, you're here for the Tucker Tour. Do you want to know about us? Okay. We're loving meeting all the people, and we look forward to seeing you at the next stop.
And we are back with Nicholeen Peck, and you can tell from the conversation, we have tons of questions. We should probably have like a whole entire week with Nicholeen so we can get our questions. But Vanessa, you asked a really good one that a lot of parents are very concerned about now, because the whole entire world is in the hand of a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old.
Yep.
And how do we make those connections again when that's the world they live in?
How do we get these kids out of their rooms?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to be really deliberate about creating our family cultures. Okay, so our families have certain cultures, and then once you bring this other device in, or these other screens and things in, you're actually bringing other culture into your home. So these devices and things are now culturing your children, and we're isolating them. This is actually a type of abandonment.
Yes.
And parents don't know they're doing it. I know this is really bold to say. I mean, my YouTube videos on my Teaching Self-Government YouTube channel are the ones where I talk about technology. Oh, I get the people on there. Nuh-uh, I got a phone when I was, nuh-uh, you know, and they get really mad. They get really mad about it.
Triggered?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. They're triggered. But this is a big debate, right? But it's still, we're in the experimental stages.
Right.
And we're knowing now more and more and more psychologically, developmentally, what's happening to the children because of this. But if you allow your child to sit in their room on a device, even if it seems like, well, they're happy, they like it, they're good at technology. If you allow that to happen, you are abandoning them. You are teaching them that life is about being alone.
Oh, wow.
And this is a very difficult thing. We humans are social creatures, introvert, extrovert. We're still social creatures. We need to feel each other, connect with each other. That's what makes us humans. It's one of the biggest things that we have with each other. That's what makes family, right? And so we've got to make sure that we make that part of our culture.
Because they don't know how to engage. When they go out there, they leave the house, they don't know how to engage with adults, with even kids their own age.
And
I know a lot of teenagers that
relationships. I mean,
I have a teenager, and when I take her out, we go to shop for something. She wants to make sure it's at a certain time on a certain day because she doesn't want to see anyone from her school. It's like, what do you mean? It should be the other way around. She's like, no, Mom, things are different. Like, we don't like to see each other outside of school.
You just want to text each other.
They just want to text. They just want to be using their gadgets.
Which actually means that they're putting up false personas in front of each other. They're not wanting to be real people.
True.
It's all
Very
image
important
based,
point.
right? So that's not good. And really, the family relationships and bonds have to trump everything else. So I do advocate for creating something called a family vision. So the family vision is one of the first things that we do when I start teaching people about self-government. And it's this picture of who you want to be as a family group, not as an individual, as a group. Because if you're a self-governed family, then it's all about the interpersonal, we are a group. We are not individuals. And back to your, thing about self-government. Well, isn't this selfish? No, it's I'm controlling myself because I'm part of a group. Because I have duty to other people around me. Right? And so you make this vision, this picture of who you want to become as a family. And then you consistently, through meetings and those types of things, you talk about, okay, well, how are we doing at becoming that type of a family? How are our relationships? In the roles book that I wrote, I share an example of parents having conversations with their children and how to have a dialogue where you talk about what should our relationship be like? What do you want it to be like? How are we going to get it there? What skills do we need to get ourselves into that place? And so having a really deliberate conversation with them, because in their hearts, they know they want something. And even if they tell you, well, I just want you to leave me alone so I do my own life. I don't want to have to be seen with you in your weird car, with your weird clothes, with your, whatever it is. But you say, okay, I understand that you feel like I'm a little behind the times, but that's okay with me. But let me tell you what I want for our relationship. And then you say, how do we both get what we want? Which is, how do you get the bond with me that doesn't embarrass you? And how do I get the bond with you that is lifelong gorgeous, right? Like, how do I get that? And let's make a plan for that, because a lot of times what happens is people just keep going reactively from one moment to the next moment with their children. They don't proactively plan. And when you're self-governed, it's all about being proactive. You learn skills ahead of time, then you follow through, then you check up on how you're doing, you give yourself feedback, you fix it, you do it again. That's what a person does well.
I feel
The
that
world
this
needs
should be
this so
taught in
much.
college. You know,
Yes.
like future parenting. This is what you have to do.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of universities that have had me come and
Really?
speak to their departments.
You
Yes.
should go speak to Congress because they could use some self-government.
Yeah, I think it's helpful for.
They
for
could learn
elementary
some
schools
self-government
as well.
over there.
Over in
Yeah, why can't they
Congress.
watch their language?
How
Right.
Should be
need to
required
have
in all daycares.
They need to have
All
some
the instructors need
instruction, and they need to be. So one of the things that is very frustrating for me right now is because I've gone through all this. I know how it works. Did I do everything perfect? No. It took me a good year and a half to realize that the timeout thing that I was doing was not what was actually we were working. And so, you know, I put my kids in timeout.
Step by step.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, that's
It's
the
a
thing is
journey.
people need to, parents need to understand it isn't something that happens overnight.
Right.
But after, you know, years of doing this and trying, you know, finally my kids like get older and you're like refining it and you feel like, I think I have this. And then you have grandchildren and their parents are doing everything opposite. I'm not even going to use the word wrong, but that's how I feel. I'm like, you're doing everything wrong. It's not working. And so when my husband and I spend a lot of time with our grandchildren and we take them on outings and sometimes overnight, you know. And so we took 3 of our granddaughters out and we were in Tennessee for like 4 days. It drove me crazy because every time I told them to do something, the first thing that came out of their mouth was why. And their parents, one especially, explains everything. As soon as the child says why, it's like, well, because blah, blah, blah. I'm like, because you said so. You know, that's the first thing that wants to come out of my mouth, you know. And I'm like, okay, that's not.
You're getting
that's
a little
not how it
triggered.
works. So I'm like, okay, whatever I do here is not going to, I can't do everything. I'm not going to do the instructional thing and all these things. It's not going to work because I'm the grandmother.
And now that your child's married into somebody else too.
Exactly.
And that's
But I thought if I could just do one small thing, that if I could carry that over and they could see that that's kind of working, that maybe it could be sustainable. And so when they said why, I said, that is not the appropriate response.
Good for you.
The appropriate response is okay, and then you do it. And then if you have questions, come back and talk to me. It's sticking.
Good.
Oh, that's
so
good.
they came home. 'Cause
Good.
it took a while because they would start saying why, and my son's like, one of my sons, he's like, because I said so. I'm like, well, what's the appropriate response? And then they would say, okay. And he's like going, what was that? You know, and so it's starting to catch. I'm like, if I can just do that one small little thing, just okay.
I love it.
And do it. So that brings me to the 4 things.
Yes.
And they're very simple, and really, and this is one of the things
my
that my husband and I have talked about a lot.
I need a pen.
It's all consistency. The secret ingredient is consistency.
And some parents
Don't
struggle with
give
that.
up.
Yes.
But the 4 things, go ahead.
Okay, so the 4 things, and there's like a children's book for each one of them and all that. And you've got them
Yes,
here.
and they are
Yeah,
all.
like, here's
everybody
a
needs to
couple
get these
of
books.
them.
Okay,
Grab your notebook.
yeah.
Grab your pen.
Okay.
They're
We
a
have
little
to
set.
pause right here. Don't give anything about the 4 things because we need to tell everybody your website.
Yes.
So that when you say these 4 things and we talk about these books, they'll know where to get them.
Okay, so the website is teachingselfgovernment.com. The YouTube channel is Teaching Self-Government. The podcast, Teaching Self-Government. That's what you got to remember.
Go
That's
find
the
it right
principle.
now. Yeah. I mean, wait after the show, but yes.
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
now you can tell them the 4
Let's
things.
finish. Okay, so there's 4 basic skills, and there's a children's book for each one of those. And they are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism. That's the same skill.
Yes.
And then accepting consequences.
Okay.
And then disagreeing appropriately. Now, each one of these skills has a skill set attached to it. Okay. And if a person learns the steps to each of those 4 basic skills, it ends up taking care of 99% of their behavioral problems. And I am talking about adults too.
Yeah.
Because these are actually adult skills.
Because
When-
adults don't know how to do that.
No. How many adults do you know that don't know how to disagree appropriately?
Lots.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen online? Have you seen
We're a little wild, right? Well, and when you were talking about your story at the very beginning, when we started talking, and you were talking about how you would say, okay, so this is what you're talking about. Here's how you need to handle it. That's a disagree appropriately mindset that a parent can have if they understand the components to the skill. So
I think people need to understand how desperate I was when I went to that class, because my 9-year-old daughter just told me she hated me, and no child that I birthed had ever done that before. And it was devastating. And I remember going up to her and saying, my daughter said she hates me. And do you know what she said?
What?
I can help you with that.
Awesome. So you're like, good, somebody can.
I would have said, then you're doing a good job.
Do you know what? There was a family who came, I think it might have been a few years after I met you. It might have been the same conference, and they were from Puerto Rico.
Right.
They had 12 children, and they came and said, okay, you're talking about this calm thing that's foreign to us.
Very much so.
But we
That's
know
true.
we need that. They're like, we're Latin, okay? This is foreign.
We're very loud.
But anyway, but you know what? It was interesting is I went to their home. We filmed it. You can see it on my website. It's called The Family Tutorial. We filmed the training of their family. Anyway, there was a point where the father was focusing on being calm, helping his child learn to be calm. And he's like, you have to be calm. You're not calm yet. We need to be calm. And this boy who was 15 looked at his dad and he's like, just hit me. It'll be faster. You know?
Oh,
And
baby.
and the dad looked at me and he said, he's not actually ever accepting consequences when I hit him, is he? And I said, no. You're just doing something to him. You're doing something to him. If he is going to learn self-government, he has to accept consequences, which means he needs to be able to be calm and say, that's right.
You know, that is very powerful, because the biggest symptom of the problem in our country right now is no one wants to accept consequences. They just want to, and they think that freedom is I can do whatever I want and there are no consequences, or I get to choose what the consequences are. And if I don't like the consequences, then you're horrible, or you're this, or you're that. And this is why this is so foundational and why it's so powerful, because you're teaching these 4 simple concepts that the whole entire country desperately needs right now. So let's go through, because when we did the whole day of classes, you went through each scenario.
Well, the 4 skills. There's also 5 skills for parents too.
Right.
So there's 9 total. There's like 3 classes we teach. There's problem-solving exercises. There's a lot of tone elements. So in order to create this environment where the whole family's self-governing, it takes structure and it takes tone. And tone is like how it feels, right? That's the calmness piece. That's the, can I really drop the subject about that? Can I stop myself from ruminating on that? Can I give myself a no answer? Can I instruct myself? So a self-governed person doesn't just take your instructions and your no answers, but they can say, that's a no, self. No more chocolate. Or whatever it is.
So,
whatever it is, that's a
I
no.
do have to say that there was a side effect of this whole entire parenting thing that I did not anticipate. When my daughter Amber was 13 years old, she was disagreeing with some of the rules. And I went into my room one day, and tacked to my door was a 99 Thesis.
Oh, you did?
And it was, this is the reason why I disagree. This is the reason why this is what I think the rule should be. And I'm like, that really wasn't what Martin Luther was thinking when he put that up there, but okay, we can have a conversation. But it really got my kids to start thinking. Something else that we added that isn't like a skill or a tool, but it I don't know, God kind of works on you to create
your
these.
culture.
That's it.
Yeah.
Is I started doing proposals. And that has been such a blessing, because they're always like, can I have this? Can I have that? And you're like, okay, it's a lot of work to go through the whole entire thing. So I'd say, well, submit a proposal.
Okay.
So now that I've got, we
funny.
live like the Waltons in my house right now. So I've got, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Right. 2 of my sons started a business. And so they and their families are living in with us. It's a big house. We can live like the Waltons. But, the daughters-in-law, they don't have their own home. And that's a thing when you don't have your own kitchen, your own house. And I want them to feel like they're a part of this home and this family, but it's my home. It's my house.
Right.
And so
My
if you want to change it, you're going to have to come to me. And I would come home from these trips and one time I had a whole entire garden inside my laundry room that was and I'm like, okay, what is this? And then I had this bird feeder that had, it just all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I sat everybody down and I said, okay, I want you all to feel very welcome here, but this is my house and I'm taking it back. So from now on, if you want to make any changes outside of your space, submit a proposal. And it's working.
That's
and
awesome.
One of my daughters-in-law submitted this 3-page proposal because she wanted
then
a
you
bunny.
don't have to react. Because you don't have to react. Because when you're coming home,
that tension, that's
because
terrible.
guess what? This is what's happening. You're coming home and you see plants growing on the washer dryer or whatever. Okay. That's a no answer to you. Okay, that's a no answer to you. So then you have to go, all right, now I have to accept the no answer. I've got to look at the situation, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say, okay, that is how it is. Or go disagree appropriately with the person, which it sounds like is what you tried to do. And then you drop the subject, right? So then when the person hears the no answer from you, they have to look at the person or the situation, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say, okay, I understand your point of view on that, or disagree appropriately, and then drop the subject. And so those little skills are the moments that handle all of those things. And submitting a proposal is that proactive way to basically say, let's talk about it before anyone has to go down that, this is one of those no answers I'm going to have to,
fix a problem you can avoid.
Or you become the bad guy.
And I
Well, it
hate
shouldn't be,
that.
because we shouldn't be taking any of that personally.
Right.
Because people do things, they have behaviors,
Sure.
they make decisions, and when we live with people, we can't take any of that personally. We just have to be able to talk
You
about
feel
it. We
like
have to
you're
be
the
a
bad
group.
guy because you're the one that's saying this isn't working.
And then become a people
can
pleaser.
feel like a
but that's all
personal
trauma.
attack.
That's all
Right.
trauma, and that's all stuff that you
Well,
can't
and just
regulate.
tendencies.
Right,
There's
that
just
too.
different tendencies
True.
of people, too.
Absolutely.
The way they process. Some people want to please others.
Yeah, I've had my 16-year-old actually write a paper and do a whole presentation on him wanting to get a hamster. He ended up getting it because it was really good.
Well, my daughter-in-law got a bunny
Make a
because
case.
I want to put the cage here. She's getting a bunny. And I'm like, okay.
I mean,
it's
he
totally
did
fine.
an Xbox. He
I
wanted
mean,
an Xbox. I'm like, guy, you've had a PlayStation for 6 years. What do you need? What do you need an Xbox for? We just bought you a PlayStation. Him and his friend did a group proposal presentation, and we sat in the living room, and we were like, all right, I guess you're getting an Xbox.
That's it. So he actually disagreed appropriately.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Let me tell
And
you
I didn't
the
even
steps.
teach him. I was like,
Let
what
me
is
tell you
that?
the steps to disagree appropriately. You look at the person or the situation, you keep a calm face, voice, and body. You say you understand their point of view, which is what he did when he made his proposal. Then you share your point of view. Then you listen to what they have to say about it. You say, okay, and drop the subject.
That was good.
So he, hopefully, if you said you still can't, he would
Right,
have been
he
able to
would've.
say, okay, because you heard him out. And that's the important thing.
This
He
is
would've
like
asked
one of
again.
the best shows that we have ever had. We need to have you back.
Yes.
We could talk for a whole entire week. So when we come back, we're going to talk about, really quickly go through some of the books that she has, all the resources that you can find, and highly encourage you to sign up for Teaching Self-Government, because I can personally attest it will change your life. We'll be right back on The Mom View. We've all heard the old saying, every vote counts, right? Well, maybe you think your vote couldn't possibly make a difference. Maybe you think your one vote is insignificant or irrelevant. You are not insignificant, and your one vote can have a huge impact. Moms like us care deeply about our children and grandchildren. Our culture, our values, the economy, and our freedoms are all extremely important to us. As moms, we must be engaged. We need to vote our values. Yes, every vote does count. And when we unite our one vote with the votes of moms all across the country, it's no longer just an election. It's a movement.
Oh my gosh, I just absolutely love that you've been here. I can use so much of this information, and I think having you here explains and shares with all of our audience that they need this too. So thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
I think for me, just sitting here and talking with you again, it reminds me of everything with my children. And I always knew as a mom that everything started with me. And then if I could get my house in order, meaning my self-government, I would always say it was my house in here. that I could be a better parent and that my husband and I could together do it better. So that just strengthens our community and our home. And then I also, when it was calm, if I stayed calm, the house stayed calm.
Yeah.
And my husband would stay calm. So I did remain calm a lot. And when I ever did get crazy, the whole place went down. So it just shows you how you are the controller of the temperature in your home and how truly important that is. So I appreciate you stating that again, because that's what we always need to be doing with our grandchildren, with our kids, maintain that correct temperature in our home. We regulate it.
Which I'm gonna confess is very hard for Hispanic. You know, like our culture is screaming and yelling, and even when we're happy, we're screaming and yelling. That's who we are, you know. So but I will put the chancla away, and I'm not gonna use it anymore since they're adults anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm gonna stop with that. But thank you so much. This has been very, very beneficial.
Yeah, Nicholeen, we always say, you know, no one is ever ready for kids, to have kids, right? Raising children is one of the most difficult tasks in life, but the most wonderful and beautiful one that women can ever have. And I think every day we're learning. Every day we can be better as parents, and that is exactly what the resources that you provide does. And I want to thank you for that, because today my kids are already grown ups, but I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to communicate better with them on a daily basis. I'm still learning how to be a better mom, because that ultimately that is my goal every day. I get up every day thanking God for the life that I have for life in general, and at the same time, I ask Him to make me a better mom, a better person, and I want to thank you for all that you do, all the information that you provide, because it helps us in that process.
Yeah, so I just want to say how much I appreciate you being here. You're like one of my favorite people on the planet. And we have all these moms who are watching. So what would be like the great wisdom that you would leave them until we get to visit with you next time?
You know, my heart grieves for moms right now. There's so many young, I could get a little choked up about it, actually. There's so many young moms who don't love it.
Right.
Who are hoping to love it. They wanted that child and they thought, I think I want to love this. But then they say, what about my time? What about my nails? What about my things? What about, and then they realize this other world called mom is a major inconvenience, right, on life. And they're not sure if they can keep liking it every day, because they get mistreated sometimes. They don't have the skills they need. Maybe they weren't trained. They don't have the support. They're tired. You know, my heart grieves for them because they're so vulnerable. But they are literally writing on the hearts of all of the future inventors, painters, orators, freedom fighters. They are writing on the hearts. It is a sacred duty.
Yes.
We get the opportunity as women, as mothers, to script the lives of the future generations of society.
Powerful.
We have more power than anybody else. So I head also an international women's organization. Just, it's another hat I wear, right? Anyway, and it was started because people started talking bad about mother.
Right.
And there's a reason mother keeps getting attacked.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a reason, and that's
Sure.
because she is that powerful. But she needs skills. You need words to say. If the words that you're saying don't work, then you get new words.
Yes,
and you
ma'am.
plan them. You
Yes,
plan them for yourself. And you analyze yourself. And you know what? Just drop the subject about some of that stuff. That's probably one of the biggest things that mom does, is she holds all of it on to herself as if she either ruined it all or she made it all the best.
Oh, I feel that.
Do you know what I mean?
I feel that.
Yeah, so sometimes you just have to drop the subject and say, you know what? I learned past that moment, and I'm not going to keep judging myself for it. I'm going to now just move forward. And I think that's why we're here, right? It's not because we think all the people listening are perfect, but it's because we want them to be able to move forward with hope and to have something new.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
That's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good word.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We're going to have you back.
Yeah.
This has been, again, one of the best episodes ever. So I want to make sure that we're talking about these incredible books that Nicholeen has, because you're going to want to get them. Every single one of the children's books talks about one of those tools that you can use, the skills that you can develop to help you be a great parent and establish that calm. It really does work, trust me. The roles that we have and how we can be a better mentor, teacher to our children, because that's really the first role that we have. And then there is what I call the Bible of parenting. Everybody wants the manual, right? We start having children and we're like, where's the manual? Here it is. So this is Parenting Self-Government. This is the first book that Nicholeen did, and all of these other books came because of this. She has videos and resources and everything that you can possibly imagine. So go to teachingselfgovernment.com, and sign up, because you're going to want to be able to be a part of this. And you can catch all of our shows at themomview.com, and we want to be able to see you next week on our couch as we talk about another subject that matters to you. We'll see you next week on The Mom View.